So I want to tell you about the time I saw a dead body on the subway. But first, I want to tell you about myself. I have always had this strange thought that comes kind of from nowhere, that under the right circumstances, I could be a hero. That deep inside me, a Clark Kent would miraculously become a Superman, and in the right circumstance, I would do the thing that the people around me had no guts and weren't able to do. And there's nothing in my past that would actually lead me to have this kind of thought. I just thought that under the correct circumstances in life, this would just kind of come out of me miraculously. And a year ago, I had a chance to see if this was true. So I was standing on the subway platform waiting for the train to come. It was February. It was a frigid morning, and it was about 9 a.m. and I was heading to work. And the subway shows up, and I hop on, and all of a sudden, I feel that something's strange on the subway. Everybody's looking at me kind of grim, and I look around trying to figure out, like, what is happening? Like, why do people have this look on their face? And quickly, I find the answer. And I look down, and there's a young man, and he is completely passed out, and he's sprawled across 3 seats on the subway platform. And he had a small, wispy mustache. He looked about 23 years old, and he was wearing a big, oversized construction jacket that looked faded. So I figured, this is some kid. He, must have gotten off his shift. He got into the subway car. Maybe he had a couple drinks. Maybe he had something else, and he nodded off. And with that mystery solved, I grabbed onto the pole, and I looked over at this kid, and I joined into the rest of the car with every New Yorker's favorite pastime, which is hating anybody who takes up more than one seat on the subway. And as I looked at this kid, I started to get a little bit irritated because there was a pregnant woman on the car next to me who was standing. There was an elderly couple in their 80s who were also standing and couldn't sit. And I said to this old woman next to me, has anybody tried to wake him up? And she was staring right at him, and she didn't say anything to me. Or I'm sorry, she was staring right at him, and without looking at me, she said something that I'll never forget. She said, I haven't seen him move since I got on. I don't think he's breathing. And I felt this cold shiver kind of run up my spine, and I said, are you sure? And she said, yeah, I got on 4 stops ago. He hasn't moved once. I think he's dead. And I got this really strange feeling of just total nervousness. And I was looking around the car to see, like, who could help in the situation. And I looked to the old woman who looks concerned. I looked to the pregnant woman who looks pregnant and irritated. And I look to my left, and I see a tall, handsome man in a suit who I can only describe as being Glenn Ross handsome. He had a blue glossy suit. He had slicked, perfectly combed hair, and he looked just ticked off and, definitely on his way to Wall Street. And I looked at him, I said, we should call an ambulance, as the naive person that I was. And he looked at me, and he looked at the kid, and he said, fuck him. And immediately 2 thoughts crossed my head. One was that I hated everything about this person. I had been to enough Occupy Wall Street meetings to know that this was the reason that everything was wrong in the world. And the other thought that crossed my mind was, this is it. This is my chance to be a subway hero. I'm going to do the thing that nobody else in the subway car can do. I'm going to go up, and I'm going to shake that dead body. This is the thought that crossed my mind. And that's just what I did. I walked right up, and I could feel the whole car looking at me, and I took a deep breath, and I reached in to A, touch a stranger on the subway, which is crazy in its own self, and B, touch a dead body, which I've never seen before in my life. And I steel myself to do this, and I reach in, and I get closer, and my heart's pounding my chest, and my hands get closer to his shoulder, and I reach out, and I jump back, and I just can't do it. And I say out loud to the car, I just can't do it. And I look around to see who's going to take charge in the situation. And the old woman's doing nothing, the pregnant woman's doing nothing. I look over to the guy in the suit, and he looks at me, and he looks at the body, and he says, "Fuck it, I'll do it." And he walks right past me, and he grabs him on the shoulder, and he shakes him like a sack of potatoes. And he says, "Hey, are you awake?" Nothing. He shakes him again. "Hey, are you awake?" Nothing. And he stands up and he turns around and he looks at me and he says, "Yeah, he's dead." And I just feel this like slow mounting fear, and I have no idea how to react to this. I have nothing in my background that has ever prepared me for this moment. I grew up in the suburbs. I had never seen a dead body in my life, and we don't have to deal with these things in the suburbs. And so I look around the subway car, and I'm trying to come up with something to do, like what's the next step here? Like, what is the blueprint? And I say to the car and to this man in the suit, we should stop the train and call an ambulance. And without blinking, he says, "No, don't make everyone late." And it took a second for that to kind of sink in, and I thought to myself, don't make everyone late. Like, what, if not for this, what would you make everyone late for? This isn't, we're all callous, we all live here. This isn't, somebody that you just walk past on the street. This is a dead body in the subway car, which is essentially our living room that's shared by everybody. And if you aren't going to do something now at this moment, when would you actually make people on the train late? And so I'm trying to think, okay, so what next? And I say, well, maybe at the next stop, we can carry him off and call an EMT. And somebody in the subway car shouts out, "Don't move him, you could hurt him." Which in retrospect makes no sense. And so I start to feel that my options are getting lower and lower, and I start to feel the tide of the subway car like turning against me. And I feel this like low fear coming up, like a moth flapping in the back of my head, just saying over and over again, like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? And I really have no answer. And I'm definitely not becoming this Superman that I thought I would just become in this situation. I am decidedly myself. I am decidedly nervous, and I decidedly do not know what to do. And so I look back at the man in the suit, who is clearly in charge now, and I say, well, we can't just do nothing. Are you sure that he's dead? And he says, yeah, watch. And he walks up, and he grabs him, and he shakes him like a rag doll. And he says, hey, are you awake? And he lets him go, and he just flops back onto the seat. And he turns around to look at me to say, like, see, I told you so. And he looks back, and he grabs him again, and he shakes him like a rag doll. He says, hey, are you awake? And the kid pops up, and he gasps like a fish on a dock, wide-eyed, and the entire subway car breathes out this audible, collective sigh of relief, as everyone just thinks, oh, thank God I don't have to deal with this thing. And the pregnant woman sits down next to him. He slides over to the side of the seat, and he immediately puts his head on the railing, and he falls back asleep. And so, thinking back on it, I learned a lot of different things. I, in retrospect, am so grateful that people like that guy exist and that he was on the subway car. I always felt that this some depth of caring would be the thing that would allow me to do the stuff that other people wouldn't maybe do in the situation and rise up and take charge and whatnot. But that was just the thing that froze me in that moment and did not allow me to do anything, because I was thinking so much about what to do and how to do it correctly and blah, 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 that I was just completely frozen. And the fact that this guy didn't care at all and was more or less callous and cold, that allowed him to do the thing that I couldn't do in this situation. He actually got the job done. And I learned one other thing. They say that death waits for no one, which is true, but in New York, the MTA waits for no one, not even death. Thank you.